Before we start, let me be that cliche YouTuber for a moment and ask if you're watching this video. Please take a second to like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean everything and allow the channel to make bigger and better. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the video. Turn down the lights and don't look behind you.
I think my dad saved my family 25 years after he died. I've never written something like this before. I own a gym. I spend most of my time talking about protein intake, progressive overload, and why your deadlift form probably needs work. I'm not the post your feelings on the internet type, but I don't really know what else to do with this story. So here it is. My name's Caleb. I'm 31. I own a pretty successful training facility in the suburbs. I'm married to an incredible woman, Laura, and we have 2 daughters, Sophie, 8, and Mia, 5. They're the center of my world. When I was 6 years old, in 2001, I lost my dad on September 11th. He was FDNY. That's still weird to type. I don't remember everything from that day. But I remember enough. I remember him kneeling down before shift that morning, adjusting his turnout coat, telling me to be brave for Mom. I remember thinking his job was the coolest thing in the world. I remember the smell of smoke that clung to him, even on days off. A week after he died, 2 of the guys from his firehouse came to our house. Big, tough men. They cried in our living room. They gave me 3 things: his jacket patch, the small prayer card he kept in his pocket, his walkie-talkie. They said it had been clipped to his gear. One of them told me, "We thought you might want something that keeps you connected." I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I held that radio like it was sacred. For years, I'd press the button and whisper, "Dad?" Just static. I never became a firefighter. A lot of people expected me to. Instead, I built something else. I opened a gym. I train first responders at a discount. I run free self-defense workshops for girls. I sponsor local firehouse fundraisers every year. His patch hangs framed behind my front desk. His prayer card stays in my office drawer. And the walkie-talkie has been on my nightstand my entire adult life. It hasn't worked in years. The battery is long dead, corroded. I never replaced it. I just kept it there. I don't really know why, until a few months ago. It was 2:17 in the morning. I know the exact time because I looked at the clock right after it happened. I woke up to the sound of static. At first I thought I was dreaming, but it was mechanical, rhythmic. The unmistakable sound of a radio scanning for a signal. I opened my eyes. The room was dark except for a faint glow, coming from my nightstand, from the walkie-talkie. My heart started pounding instantly. Then I heard it. My name. Caleb. Caleb. The voice was distorted, like it was coming through smoke and interference. But it was his. I don't care how that sounds. I know my father's voice. Some part of your brain never forgets it. Then he said, "Mayday, mayday, mayday. Points of egress are blocked. Smoke rising. I don't know how long we've got before this goes backdraft." I couldn't breathe. It sounded like he was mid-emergency, like he was reliving that day. Then his voice changed, more direct, more urgent. "Caleb, get Laura and the girls out now. That's an order, son." I started crying immediately, not quiet tears, full, shaking, 6-year-old tears. And then I smelled smoke. faint, but real. That's when everything in me snapped into motion. I woke Laura up and said one word: fire. You could see the confusion turn into fear in her face instantly. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I just moved. I ran down the hall and saw orange light flickering in the kitchen. The back of the house was already starting to burn. Later they told me it was likely an electrical issue near the deck. Laura grabbed Sophie. I grabbed Mia. Smoke was pooling at the ceiling faster than it should have. I've trained enough first responders to understand how bad that is. Backdraft. That word kept echoing in my head. Points of egress are blocked. The back door was already unusable. Flames had taken it. We stayed low and got to the front door. I covered the girls' faces with my shirt as we pushed outside. Cold air hit us. 10 seconds later, there was an explosion behind us. A literal blast. Windows shattered. Flames erupted through the back half of the house. The fire department later confirmed it was a backdraft. If we had stayed inside another few minutes, if we'd been asleep, if I hadn't woken up, I don't even want to finish that sentence. We stood on the lawn in our pajamas while our house burned. All 4 of us alive. All 4 of us breathing. I was still holding the walkie-talkie. It was dark. Silent. Dead again. The firefighters said we were lucky. One of them told me, "That spread fast. You must have caught it early." I just nodded. How do you explain that your father, who died 25 years ago, ordered you out of a burning house? Laura asked me later if I heard anything before waking her up. I told her. She said she thought she heard static but no voice. That part messes with me. Was it just for me? I've replayed that night 100 times in my head. Was it grief? A stress dream? Some subconscious smell detection my brain processed before I consciously registered it? Maybe. I'm not a guy who jumps to supernatural conclusions. I believe in training, preparation, logic. But here's the part I can't logic away. The battery in that radio is corroded solid. I had tried opening it years ago and couldn't. There is no charge. There hasn't been for over a decade. There is no explanation for it powering on. None. After the fire, we moved into a rental while we rebuilt. Insurance covered most of it. The girls adjusted better than I expected. One night, my oldest asked me, "Did Grandpa save us?" I didn't know what to say. I told her this: "I think Grandpa taught me to listen." That's the only way I can frame it without sounding unhinged. Maybe he didn't literally break through time and radio waves. Maybe something in me, something shaped by him, heard what others wouldn't. But I can still hear his voice in my head, exactly as it came through that speaker. "Caleb, get Laura and the girls out now. That's an order, son." I've spent my entire life trying to make him proud. That night, I felt like a 6-year-old again, who couldn't disobey his dad, and because of that, my family is alive. We broke ground on the new house last month. I installed a top-tier fire suppression system before drywall even went up. I run free fire safety nights at my gym now. I partnered with the local department to teach families what backdraft actually means. If there's even a small chance that instinct, or something more, can save someone else, I'm leaning into it. The walkie-talkie is still on my nightstand. I haven't heard his voice again. But a few weeks after the fire, on the anniversary of 9/11, I lay in bed and said out loud, "Thanks, Dad." There was a single burst of static, just one, soft, brief, enough. You can believe me or not. I get it. If I were reading this, I'd probably be skeptical too. All I know is this: My father died running into a burning building. 25 years later, I'm convinced he pulled me out of one.
The landline in our hallway rings every night at 3 a.m. It isn't connected. Hi, I've never posted here before, but I've been reading for years. I'm not sure if this is the right place, but I don't know who else to tell without sounding completely unhinged. I'm 32, newly single. My ex left last year and the divorce finalised in November. It's just me and my daughter Ellie. She turned 3 in January. She's obsessed with dinosaurs and refuses to eat anything that isn't beige. 3 weeks ago, we moved into an old terraced house in a rougher part of town. It wasn't my first choice, but when you're living off one income and trying to stretch savings through childcare and legal fees, first choice becomes a luxury. The house was cheap, suspiciously cheap. I found out why during the viewing. The estate agent, who looked like he hadn't slept in days, mentioned in a hushed voice that the previous occupant had disappeared under unclear circumstances. There had apparently been some criminal activity tied to the address years ago. Drugs, maybe. Nothing proven, just rumours. Eventually, the house was seized and auctioned after the owner stopped paying the mortgage. No body was ever found. The place had been empty for almost a year. But it was structurally sound. 2 bedrooms, small garden, good roof, and most importantly, affordable. So we moved in. The first week was exhausting but normal. Painting over nicotine-stained walls, pulling up stained carpets, scrubbing grime from tiles that hadn't been cleaned since flip phones were cutting edge. There's a long, narrow hallway when you first walk in. The walls are panelled halfway up, and at the far end, just before the kitchen door, there's an old-fashioned wall phone mounted at shoulder height. It's one of those early 2000s beige plastic ones. Chunky buttons, coiled cord, little digital screen at the top that probably once showed caller ID. It looks absurdly out of place now. The estate agent told me it wasn't connected. The previous owner had disconnected the landline years ago. I didn't care. Who even has a landline anymore? I considered ripping it off the wall during renovations, but I don't know. It felt like too much effort. It wasn't hurting anything. So I left it. That was my first mistake. The first night the phone rang, I thought I was dreaming. It was exactly 3 a.m. I know that because I checked my phone the second it woke me. It wasn't a modern ringtone. It was that old metallic brrring sound that echoes in old houses. It jolted me upright. For a moment, I genuinely thought someone had broken in and was making the noise deliberately. Then it rang again. Ellie's bedroom is next to mine. My first thought wasn't ghosts. It was, please don't wake her up. I crept into the hallway. The house was freezing. We hadn't fixed the central heating yet, so the air felt damp and heavy. The phone rang again, and I just stood there staring at it. It was impossible. It wasn't plugged into anything. The cord trailed down the wall and disappeared into a small hole behind the unit. But I'd checked earlier that week. There was no active line, no dial tone, nothing. It rang again. Against my better judgment, I picked it up. Silence, not even static. "Hello?" I whispered. Nothing. After about 10 seconds, the line went dead. I stood there for a full minute before putting the receiver back. It didn't ring again that night. I barely slept. The next morning, I convinced myself it was faulty wiring. Old houses do weird things. Maybe some residual current in the line. Maybe a neighbour's connection crossed over. I even unscrewed the faceplate and checked behind it. The wiring looked ancient and dusty. I don't know much about electrics, but it didn't look like something capable of powering a call. Still, I left it. The second night, it rang again. 3 a.m. exactly. This time, I was already half awake when it happened. I rushed into the hallway before it could ring twice. I picked it up immediately. That's when I heard her. A woman. Sobbing. Not loud, not theatrical. Just quiet, broken crying. The kind where someone is trying not to be heard. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaking. The sobbing continued. "Who is this?" No response, just crying. Then the line clicked dead. I stood there for a long time after that. Ellie slept through it. I didn't. Night 3, 3 o'clock a.m. The phone rang. I felt sick before I even picked it up. Sobbing again. This time it was closer, more desperate, wet, choking breaths between broken cries. "Please," I said, "stop calling here." The crying didn't change. If anything, it grew more frantic. "Who are you?" The line cut off mid-sob. That morning, I called the phone company. They confirmed there was no active landline registered to the address. I unplugged the wiring from inside the wall. That night, it rang anyway. By night 4, I was unravelling. Sleep deprivation does strange things to you. Every shadow looks like movement. Every creak sounds intentional. Ellie started waking up grumpy and clingy. I told myself I had to get this under control for her. 3 o'clock a.m. The ringing split through the house. I sprinted into the hallway before it could wake her. I picked up. The sobbing was louder now, closer. It didn't sound like it was coming through a phone anymore. It sounded like someone standing inches away from me. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered, terrified of waking my daughter. The sobbing paused. For the first time, there was silence, then a whisper. "Please." It was so faint I almost thought I imagined it. "What?" "Please." The line went dead. I didn't go back to sleep. I sat in Ellie's room and watched her breathe until morning. On the 5th night, I broke. I couldn't keep living like that. I couldn't keep being scared in my own house. 3 o'clock a.m. The ringing started. I stormed into the hallway before the second ring. I yanked the receiver off the cradle. "What do you want?" I hissed. "Please, I have a child. You're scaring her. What do you want from me?" For a moment, nothing. Then the sobbing returned, but it was different, less chaotic, more purposeful. And then I heard her clearly. Her voice sounded raw, like her throat had been torn apart. "Help me. Cut the line." I froze. "What?" "Please, it's in the basement, behind the wall." The connection crackled. "Please." Then the line went dead. I didn't move for several minutes. The basement. When we moved in, I'd barely looked down there. It was unfinished. Concrete floor. Exposed pipes. A single light bulb on a pull cord. It smelled damp and metallic. I'd been avoiding it. But something about her voice. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't angry. It was desperate. And suddenly I thought about the previous owner, the one who disappeared. Nobody found. I waited until morning. I took Ellie to my neighbour's house under the excuse that I needed to check the boiler. Then I went down into the basement alone. The stairs creaked under my weight. The air grew colder with each step. I pulled the cord. The bulb flickered on. Dust hung in the air. At first glance, nothing looked unusual. Just old pipes lining the ceiling. A fuse box. Some abandoned paint cans. Then I noticed it. One section of wall near the back corner looked newer than the rest. The concrete was slightly different in colour, rougher, like it had been patched, and running along the ceiling above it was a thick cable, old, black, snaking toward the hallway, the phone line. My stomach dropped. I grabbed a hammer from upstairs and came back down. Every step toward that wall felt wrong. I tapped at the patched concrete. It sounded hollow. I hit it harder. The surface cracked. Dust poured out. I swung again. A chunk of the wall gave way, and I saw bone. At first, my brain refused to process it. White, curved, jagged. Then the smell hit. I stumbled back, gagging. Inside the cavity behind the wall was a human skeleton, suspended from the ceiling pipes by what used to be rope. The skull tilted slightly to one side, jaw hanging open in a permanent scream. Around the neck, looped tightly, was the phone line. It had been threaded up through the ceiling, connected, taut, as if the weight of the body had pulled it down and kept it under tension. My legs gave out. The previous occupant hadn't disappeared. She'd been here the whole time. The police came. There were questions, shock, forensics, tape across my basement door. They confirmed it was the former homeowner, a woman in her late 30s, reported missing 11 months ago. Cause of death, hanging. They think she staged it herself, sealed the wall from the inside before stepping off whatever she'd used for support. They couldn't explain the phone line. They said it must have been some kind of residual wiring tension that caused interference. They didn't say it convincingly. They removed the remains. They cut the cable. That was 6 nights ago. The phone hasn't rung since. The hallway feels different, warmer, quieter. The house doesn't creak the same way anymore. The air feels lighter. Ellie sleeps through the night now. And sometimes when I walk past that old beige wall phone, I swear it looks less yellow, less decayed, like it's finally at rest. I haven't taken it down. I don't think I will, because for the first time since we moved in, this house feels like home. And every night at 3 a.m, there is only silence. I worked nights long enough that the fluorescent lights started to feel like weather. If you've never been inside a 911 centre at 3:12 a.m, picture a room that hums. Not metaphorically. The consoles hum, the headsets hum, the coffee machine hums like it's threatening to die, and the air conditioning breathes cold, recycled air across the backs of your hands while you type. You stop noticing it until the hum changes, until something sharp cuts through it, like a voice that doesn't belong in the world outside your headset. We call them X-calls. Not officially, not on paper. It's not a training module. It's just what dispatchers call the weird ones when we're trying to make them small enough to fit inside a shift. Calls that don't behave, calls that don't end, calls that come back. This is one of mine. Night 1. It was just past 2 a.m. when she came through, already crying, already out of breath like she'd been running in place. Please, I need someone now, she said. He's here. He's trying to get in. Okay, I told her, voice on autopilot, fingers moving before my brain fully caught up. You've reached 911. What's the address of your emergency? A hitching inhale, a swallow that sounded painful. It's 17 Brackenridge. Please, he's my boyfriend. He's going to kill me. I repeated the address back. Confirmed city, confirmed cross street, standard. The whole time I could hear something else, a wet, muffled thud, like a fist hitting wood with a towel over it. Lisa, she said before I'd even asked. My name's Lisa. Please, he's trying the knob. I locked it, but he... The doorknob rattled in my ear. Not like an audio effect, not like something she added for drama. The tiny metallic tee-tee-tee-tee-tee was the kind you only hear when you're close enough to smell the door. Lisa, I've got officers on the way. Stay on the line with me. Where are you inside the house? My room. Upstairs. The one at the end. I pushed the dresser. A harder impact. The door shook and her breath went thin and sharp like paper tearing. He's going to break it, she whispered. He said he'd break it. Okay, listen to me, Lisa. Is there a window? Can you get out? No. She sobbed like she was trying not to make sound. If I move, he'll hear, and he'll come in, and... A new sound, scraping. Wood dragged against carpet. She made a tiny choking noise. He's moving something. He's getting the chair. He's getting the chair from the hall. I typed fast. Male trying force entry. Female barricaded in upstairs bedroom. Threats to kill. We get plenty of domestic calls. They can go bad in seconds. The only thing you can do is keep the caller talking and keep their location clear. How old are you, Lisa? 28, she said immediately. Like she'd rehearsed it. What's his name? Silence then. Don't make me say it. The door hit again, harder, a sharp crack in the wood. I flinched even though I wasn't there. Lisa, it helps the officers. What's his name? Her voice dropped to a ragged whisper. He doesn't like his name. The doorknob stopped rattling. For a moment there was nothing but her breathing and the distant hum of my office. My screen glowed with the address and unit numbers, the call timer ticking up in steady seconds like a heartbeat. Then very softly, a man's voice came through her phone. Not loud, not threatening. The kind of voice someone uses when they're standing on the other side of a door and they know you can hear them. Lisa, the voice said. Open up. She made a sound that turned my stomach. Half sob, half suppressed scream. He's right there, she mouthed. He's right there. Lisa, I said, keeping my voice even. I need you to stay as quiet as you can. The officers are... The line crackled, not a disconnect, more like interference, the way old radios used to howl when you drove under power lines. Through the static, the man's voice again, closer to her phone now, like he'd leaned down. You told strangers, he said, and there was something almost amused in it. You told strangers where we live. Stop, she whispered. Then the static surged, and for a split second I thought I heard another sound under it, something like distant laughter, tinny and wrong, as if it came from inside the house instead of outside the call. The first responding units arrived in under 6 minutes. I stayed connected, relaying updates, coaxing Lisa to keep breathing. When the officers keyed up from the scene, their voices were off. Dispatch, one said. We're at 17 Brackenridge. Copy. Any contact with the caller. A pause. This house looks vacant. My hand stopped, then started again. Explain. Mailbox stuffed. No lights. Yards. Dead. Windows are dusty. Front door is boarded. Like it hasn't been lived in for a while. My first instinct was wrong address. It happens. People panic. They spit numbers. They mix streets. But I verified it twice. 3 times. I went back to Lisa. Lisa, officers are outside. They're saying the house looks empty. Are you sure you're at 17 Brackenridge? Her breathing hitched like she'd been slapped. Don't, she said. Don't do that. Don't say that. Lisa? The door banged again, and then the phone line gave a long, thin tone, not a dial tone, not a hang-up click, like the sound you hear when a call drops in a tunnel, stretched and mournful. The call ended. Officers cleared the property, forced entry to check due to the nature of the call. They found what you'd expect in an abandoned house: stale air, cobwebs, empty rooms. No Lisa, no boyfriend, no upstairs dresser shoved against a door. Just dust on the stairs like untouched snow. I flagged it for follow-up like we do when something doesn't sit right. We joked about it later, like you do when you're trying to keep your hands from shaking. Wrong number, prank, mental health, something. I wish it had stayed a one-off. Night 2, same time, 2:07 a.m. Same voice, only worse, like her throat was raw from screaming and she'd been crying for hours. It's happening again, Lisa panted. Please, please, you have to hurry. He waited until you left last time. Lisa, I said, cold pinprick down my spine. I need your address. 17 Brackenridge, she sobbed. He's learning. He's learning what you do. He's learning your voices. I didn't correct her. I didn't tell her I hadn't been the one on the radio last night. I didn't tell her we don't leave. We stay in the room. We don't go anywhere. I dispatched units anyway, because if she was real, if by some twist of geography the house wasn't boarded like the officers said, if she was in danger, you don't gamble with her life because your stomach is uneasy. What is he doing right now? I asked. He's downstairs, she whispered, voice shaking. He's talking to himself. He's saying I shouldn't have called. That I shouldn't have called. That he'll make me quiet. A soft thump came through, followed by the creak of stairs. He's coming up, she whimpered. He's coming up. I can hear him. Lisa, can you whisper? Keep the phone with you, but don't make noise. I didn't move, she whispered frantically. I didn't move last time. I stayed still, and he's still. A pause, then a small broken sound. What happened last time? I asked, even though I didn't want to. She swallowed. He opened the door. My mouth went dry. Lisa, you told me the dresser was... He pushed it, she breathed, like she couldn't believe it. Like it was nothing. Like it wasn't there. And he looked at me, and he smiled, and he said... She went silent, listening. He said, they can't hear you when I'm close. The static returned, soft at first, then thicker, like someone pouring sand onto the line. And under it, faint but unmistakable, the same tinny laughter. Not hers, not mine. The officers arrived again. Same report, vacant, boarded, dust, no sign of life. My supervisor listened to the recording later and didn't smile when she heard the laughter. Night 3. She didn't give me a greeting. She didn't ask for help. She started with a sobbing whisper that sounded like confession. He's in the room with me, Lisa said. I felt my heart shift into my throat. Lisa, are you safe right now? No, she said, very calmly, and that calmness was worse than the hysteria. He's not touching me. He's just watching. There was another voice in the background, far away, humming a tune under his breath, a lazy, almost affectionate hum. I typed with trembling fingers. Caller states male in room with her. Immediate threat. Lisa, I need you to tell me where you are in the room. Are you near a window? Are you near the door? I'm on the floor, she whispered. He likes me on the floor. He sees it makes me small. The humming stopped. Then close to her phone, the man whispered, Tell her to stop. Lisa's breath hitched. He knows you're there, she mouthed. He can hear you. The line crackled. My headset popped painfully in my ear. Lisa, I I said more sharply than I meant. Look at me. Listen to my voice. Officers are coming. You have to stay with me. I tried, she sobbed. I tried to run during the day. I got out to the yard, and it was like the air was thick, like wading, and the house pulled, and then I was back upstairs, and I don't remember walking. The man laughed, soft and pleased. The officers arrived faster this time, lights washing across empty windows. Same outcome. Vacant house, boarded, dust. But one of them, an older officer, said something over the radio that I still hear when the room gets too quiet. Dispatch, there are fresh footprints in the dust on the upstairs landing. Night 4. She was barely coherent. Between sobs, she kept repeating, I don't want to die here. I don't want to die here. I don't want to die here. Each time she said here, the static surged. Each time she said his boyfriend, the background got colder, as if the call itself didn't like the word. He's not my boyfriend, she whispered suddenly, like a realization. He's not. I don't know why I said that. He's just the thing that came after him. Lisa, I said softly, do you know your last name? Silence. Then. I did. The door rattled again, not frantic now, almost playful. The man's voice right beside her phone. 5. What? I asked. He repeated it clearly. 5. Lisa started to cry in a new way, quiet, resigned. He's counting nights, she whispered. He counts how many times you come. Night 5. By the 5th night, nobody joked. The patrol units rolled as soon as I keyed the call in, like they'd been waiting for it too. Lisa didn't waste breath. He's at the door, she whispered. He wants them to see him. Lisa, stay with me. Tell me what you see. I can't, she said, and I heard her swallow hard. If I look, he'll know I'm thinking of leaving. That sentence didn't make sense, but fear has its own grammar. The officers arrived, and this time a voice came over the radio almost immediately, tense and low. Dispatch, there's a male at the front door. A cold flush went through me. Confirm, is he the suspect? He says he's the owner, the officer replied. He's waiting for us. I listened with Lisa still on the line, her breathing shallow, like she was listening too. The officer spoke to the man. I could hear the conversation faintly through the radio mic. The man's voice was normal, annoyed even. What is this about? He asked. The officer explained. Repeated calls from a woman named Lisa, reporting a boyfriend trying to break in. Threats to kill. Same address, multiple nights. There was a beat of silence. Then the man spoke again, and the shock in his tone made it real in a different way. Lisa, he said. My sister's name was Lisa. The officer asked him to clarify. I heard the man inhale, sharp, as if trying to force air past something in his chest. That was her house, he said, voice tight. She lived there, alone after she finally left him. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, numb. She was killed, the man went on. 16 months ago, her partner broke into her room and... His voice broke, then it hardened, like anger welding it back together. And you're telling me you've been coming here because you think she's calling you? The officer said something about verifying, about records, about how calls are recorded and traced. The man gave a short, bitter laugh. I thought it was a prank, he said, and there was something ugly under the words, something furious and hurt. Some sick joke. People do that, right? They call dead people. Pretend. He paused and I heard him swallow. But if it's her, he sounded both shocked and angry, like those emotions couldn't decide who got to stand in front. If it's her, then where is he? The officer didn't answer. Because what answer is there? Inside my headset, Lisa whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. He told you. What? I said, even though I knew she wasn't talking to me anymore. He told you, Lisa whispered again, voice trembling on the edge of nothing. They can't hear me when he's close. Then the static bloomed, thick and heavy, swallowing her breath. And in the middle of it, clear as day, came the man's whisper. Open up. The call dropped. The official note said, unfounded, possible prank, vacant property. That's what you write when you don't have a box for woman calling from a house that doesn't exist the way it should. The cops talked about it for a week. The brother filed some kind of report about harassment. They checked phone records. They traced. They did everything we do when we want the world to be solvable. The calls kept coming. Different operators, different consoles, different nights. Always Lisa. Always 17 Brackenridge. Sometimes she's hysterical. Sometimes she's whispering like the air itself will punish her if she speaks. Once she called and didn't cry at all, just breathed into the phone while something heavy dragged across a floor in the background, slow as a lullaby. Once she said, he's wearing my face. And then the line filled with laughter so bright and delighted, I had to pull my headset off like it had burned me. We still call them X-calls in the break room. We pretend it's a code that makes us professionals instead of people who are scared. X for unexplained, X for crossed wires, X for unknown, X for the ones that come back. And yes, before anyone asks, 911 dispatchers really do get a lot of strange calls like this. Not all are paranormal. Most have explanations. Mental health crises, hoaxes, intoxication, grief that turns into repetition, technical glitches that mimic voices. But every centre I've ever heard of has a handful of calls that get passed around like urban legends with CAD numbers attached. The calls from Lisa are still in our system. They still ping the map. Sometimes on night shift, when the room hums and the air conditioner breathes and the coffee machine threatens to die, I catch myself watching the call screen like it's a door, waiting for the number to light up, waiting for her to say my name like she knows me, waiting for the faint rattle of a doorknob in my ear and the soft, patient voice on the other side of it whispering like it's smiling, "Open up."